And welcome back. We're shimmying, we're jimmying, and we're goofing around talking about football on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. Today is November 7th, 2023. Welcome back to the Sporting Lounge. Don't forget to give us a like, a follow, a subscription, whatever you may be. Don't forget to throw me a follow over on twitch.tv/derpformation. Today, we are going to be recapping Week 9 NFL football. Are we going to be touching on this Michigan scandal at all? It's starting to heat up a little bit, it seems like. Accusations.
You know what? We can do that first. I'm down for
that. A lot of accusations coming out from both sides. That's something that I wanted to touch on. We talked about it a little bit last week.
But there's even more coming out.
Yeah,
this past week.
It's
since our last episode.
Yep. So
I'm
what I'm doing right now is
stood out to you.
So Colin Cowherd, I'm not the biggest fan about him. I made a tweet earlier today about him, but he said something that was pretty interesting. He brought up the point that Michigan has beat out teams just so dominantly throughout the season, and they're trying to push for the suspension, less as that's the right thing to do, and more as they're scared. We haven't seen a college team dominate like Michigan has this season ever. Like, not ever, but in the last 20 years. 20 years or so. Last time I could think of a team being this dominant was probably like 2013 Alabama. Crimson Tide, maybe, but I feel like they even had a couple close matchups there with like Auburn and stuff, and
okay, so then follow-up question to that. Do you feel that that's because they're actually that good on offense and defense, or do you think it's more so because of their cupcake schedule, or like a combination?
I think it's a combination somewhat, but we've seen them beat a couple of teams that are relevant too, and it's in similar fashion.
Kind of.
So, I mean,
like their first big test of the season is going to come against Penn State.
Yeah.
And the first two of their four games were against FCS schools. So, like, when I have this free reign of these top college programs, for me, just like, why not play a better team, right? Why play an FCS or lowly rated FBS school? Why not play someone a little more tougher?
Because there's an actual reason there.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So FBS schools like to play bigger competition. It helps the players, it helps the coaches, and it helps the organization because they get paid out money for an easy win from Big Ten schools, and they play at easy game at their field. So college kids will go and know that their team's going to win. Like when Michigan's playing East Carolina, they're at home. Who's going to win that game? If you're in Ann Arbor, honestly, if you're in Ann Arbor, like the Big House is packed out. Like that, it's just one of those games where it's like it'll be packed out. But not in the same way where a Michigan State game would be. But some teams might be, or some people might be hesitant to buy like Ohio State, Michigan tickets because they aren't going to win and they don't want to go to their first. That's the whole mindset is we're willing to pay out some extra money because we're going to be selling so much merchandise and stuff and da. So like that is the thing that happens. So that's why you see Michigan play teams like East Carolina, UNLV, and that it almost works as kind of like a preseason for a lot of these bigger programs. And it's a really healthy thing for football, especially on the collegiate level. They took care of business against Nebraska like they were nothing. Nebraska hasn't been sweet at all this season, but 45-7. Against Minnesota, 52-10. Against Indiana, and I believe Indiana was ranked that week. I think they were 24th when Michigan beat them, 52-7. I might be wrong, but I think they were. Thank you. Michigan against Michigan State. I was like, I think Michigan will win, but I don't think it'll be an ass whipping like it has been the rest of the season. But nope, it was. Michigan State has issues, but still, like 49-0 in a rival matchup, like, But like it didn't even feel like that explosive of a win for Michigan because it's just what Michigan's been doing all season. They've just been throttling teams.
Indiana was not ranked.
They weren't.
They have not played.
Okay, cool.
They have not played a ranked opponent yet. The first one is against Penn State this week.
Well, Indiana played Michigan at one point, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they played Purdue, which Purdue isn't an elite team at all, but like we're talking about Big Ten schools, and as you said, this week is a big matchup for them, Penn State, and like what happens when Michigan routes Penn State if they do? Like, what's the question then?
I don't think there will be a question, and I was kind of telling Travis this the other night because we were kind of arguing about whether Michigan deserved to be in the top 4 for the CFB. Because I kind of don't think they do. I think there's some more deserving teams above them, and Georgia, to be frank, because they have some of the other teams at 5 and 6 have, to me, more impressive victories.
But here's the thing with Michigan and Georgia.
I said if Penn State wins, then I'll shut up about Michigan. I mean, if Michigan beats Penn State, I'll shut up about Michigan.
Yeah. So here's the thing that Michigan and Georgia have, the other teams just don't. They have the luxury of being 2 of the Final 4 teams last season. Mm-hmm. Like coming into the season, they were highly ranked. And, the thing is with college rankings is once you achieve that rank, it's hard to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So Michigan came in, they already had that rank. They kind of get the luxury of having that cupcake schedule and getting that, if you look at how their season's lined up, East Carolina, cakewalk, UNLV should be a little bit more difficult. Bowling Green should be a little bit more difficult. Rutgers should be a little more difficult. Nebraska, a little bit more difficult. Minnesota, they might put up a fight. Indiana, they should be a little bit tougher. Michigan State, they should be a little bit tougher. And Purdue should be about the same ballpark. And then we start getting into Penn State. Then they get a week against Maryland. So, like, still a tough team, but, like, usually one that we could take care of business against pretty consistently. And then they have Ohio State, So, like, it's almost like the season is built on this incline. Like, when you're that high ranked of a team, when you're that high of ranked team, you kind of get luxury over, like, how schedules are selected and stuff. And, you earn that right. Especially on the collegiate level. So with Michigan, it's just one of those things where, they earned this right to be at this position. They had dog years. Last year was a dog year for them. A lot of ranked opponents. The season before that was another dog year for them. Like tough years. Georgia went through that with Alabama and taking the throne away from them. They earned that. You can't just judge a program based off of 1 year's performances sometimes, like when you got a dynasty going, that's why Alabama, like 2 or 3 years ago, they were still ranked number 1 in the country after like 1 loss. They got that luxury. It was just like, Alabama had their fluke game.
And I guess it's just me being, I can't think of the term, but like, I don't think
cynical
programs should get that luxury. Yeah. I don't think programs should get that luxury. Honestly, I think they need to earn it year in and year out. I get like at the beginning of the season, right? Of getting that luxury of being a top team or whatever. But like as the season goes on, I think your schedule should reflect your ranking, I guess. And I think personally, Washington should be above Michigan or Georgia.
What has Michigan done to lose their spot?
They haven't lost, frankly.
They haven't lost, like, and they've won every game in a styleable fashion too. Like, I would be a lot more like biased to swing onto your side on what you're arguing if Michigan had a couple close games or something, but they didn't. Like, we're talking about blowouts every week. Like when you're blowing out teams, like let's talk about this. How are you going to explain to the college football fan nation that Michigan dropped 3 ranks because they beat Purdue, they won, and they beat them by 29 points or 28 points, but they dropped? They beat them by 4 touchdowns.
Easy. You have a team like Washington who's beat 2 ranked opponents, which Georgia and Michigan have not. And that's my whole argument, right? Is I think Washington deserves to be at the 4 or 3 spot, whether it's taken over Florida State, Michigan, or Georgia. Right? I think Washington has earned that right to be in the top 4.
And usually a team like that slides in. TCU did it last year.
Right.
Usually it's late in the season, and they want to see how a couple losses settle out.
Mm-hmm.
With
I think
Michigan,
that's really what they're waiting for for the Penn State game, because that is going to be a big test for Michigan, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be a major factor. So if they win by a sizable margin, they could jump up to 1. If it's a blowout,
that's what
I would not be surprised if they jump up to 1.
So what happens? What happens if it? I want to give you 3 scenarios.
Okay.
1, Michigan blows out Penn State. 2, Michigan wins in a close fashion. And 3, Michigan loses in a close game. 4, we don't have to talk about, which is Michigan gets blown out. They're going to drop significantly. So that's not a conversation.
I don't think they'll get blown out. So if they win by like a blowout, I think they jump up to at least 2, possibly 1, depending on Ohio State's game. Because Ohio State, I think, has locked in that number 1, just depending on if it's a close game with Ohio State against Michigan State, then I think Michigan could jump up to number 1. But if Ohio State blows Michigan State out, but Michigan still wins in a blowout, I think it's going to be like 1-2 at that point. And then if Michigan wins in a close game, you said, right, was number 2?
Yep.
I think they stay at 3. Depending on how Georgia plays, they could potentially jump up to 2, but I think it's just going to be just 1, 2, 3, how it is right now.
Yeah.
And if they lose, I think at worst they drop to 5, and then Washington
that's kind of
creeps in at 4.
Yep, that's kind of where I was thinking.
Drop that far enough. They'll still be in that playoff hunt, but they'll drop to 5. I think
they'll need help getting back in, though. They need to beat Ohio State to get back in. So they have a second chance if that did happen.
Right.
Because if they take care, I think the only game that really matters, obviously can't lose to Maryland and Penn State in this situation, but you can lose one. But the only game that really matters from this point moving forward is Ohio State.
Well, because then you also have the championship too as well.
Right.
But
you don't even necessarily get into that if you lose to Penn State and Ohio State.
Yeah, that's what I was about to look at. I was about to look at the Big Ten standings and how that's the conference. Oh yeah, because Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State are all in the same conference. So,
yep,
they're the same division, all in the East. Yep. So yeah, that would kind of screw Michigan if they lost to both. They would not be in the title game. So yeah, if they lose to Penn State, that's okay. It hurts them a little bit, but they're not out of it. If they beat Ohio State, then that's great. They get back in it. But I still think Ohio State could make it and just slide to 4 if they're still 1 at that point.
Michigan has beat out their opponents by 306 points this season, man.
Mm-hmm. They've also had the 112th or 111th strength of schedule. So I'm not surprised. I think that's part of why I'm like a little bitter towards Michigan. That's why I always hated Alabama. It's always had cupcake schedules, but maybe that's just like you said earlier, just me being too cynical.
Yeah. So like, here's my thing. Like, because with your argument, a lot of those Alabama teams would have never made like the FCS, and did they deserve to be there? Did those Bama teams that end up winning it all deserve to be there?
They beat the best team at the best time. So, I mean, I would say so, yeah.
They wouldn't have been there with your argument. Yeah. They wouldn't be there with your argument.
I get that. I really do.
But I get it. You want more entertaining football. Yeah.
I want more entertaining
football throughout this season.
And I want teams to challenge themselves more.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it comes down to. I think Michigan is good enough to compete against tougher talent. Really.
I agree.
And so I want them to push themselves more.
So here's the thing. Like, when you're talking about Big Ten schools, so like Minnesota, Indiana, Purdue,
it's hard.
These are pro level athletes. On each one of these Big Ten schools, every position has a possible pro. Now, when you're talking about like a Minnesota compared to a Michigan, sure, there's probably 1 or 2 NFL players on each roster compared to 12 or 13. But when we're talking about that high of ranked players, when teams are beating teams that bad and the talent level isn't that supremely different, like there is a significant difference. But it's not like we're talking about an NFL team playing a college team. We're talking about two college teams playing each other. And it's just one of those situations where Michigan is just that good, where they're going to have 13, 14 NFL players drafted this upcoming year. Half their roster is going to be drafted this upcoming season. And that's a rarity, and when Alabama was doing it, that they earned that luxury. When Georgia's doing it, they earn that luxury. When you have that type of talent, it's obvious when you're blowing teams out like this. Like on a fundamental level, you got to understand Michigan is just that good when they're blowing every team out like this.
And I do think Michigan is that good, So it just goes back to I just wish teams would challenge themselves more. That's it, really.
Yeah,
that's why I'm not like mad about it or anything like that. I just slightly disappointed, I guess you could say, because I just want teams to push themselves. Essentially, is really all I want. But to kind of go back to the Michigan scandal or anything like that, apparently there's some teams that have shown proof of or sending proof that people stole Michigan signs too as well, which is kind of confusing and weird development. So it's like, because Michigan said Ohio State records shared the Wolverine signs with Purdue. So I don't know. It seems like just like a big NCAA-wide potential scandal going on right now with sign stealing, and not just limited to Michigan.
I don't know, man.
It's confusing.
I think sign stealing is like kind of hogwash.
Yeah, I mean it's technically illegal within NCAA. It's just how you do it, which is weird to me as well. Like, why? Like, if it's going to be illegal, just make it everything about it be illegal.
Well, like it's one of those things for me where it's like, I understand it's not this simple, but like I was watching Cam Hayward's podcast recently. He had Le'Veon Bell on it, and Le'Veon was talking about this one time they were playing the Bengals and he was playing for the Steelers, and Ben was like, Georgia, which is a running play. It's like a power play for the Steelers. And the Bengals are like, they're calling Georgia. He's running through this gap. And they couldn't stop it.
Right.
So they knew the call. That, like, when you're studying film and stuff, like, that just happens. And then, like, I understand sign calls change and shit, but, like, it's one thing with baseball, when the Astros did it a few years ago, because they have a fucking hyper-focused camera sitting in the stands through a trash can on the other side of the stadium, zooming in, making it so the batter knows which pitch is coming at him. Like, that's different than what's happening here.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like Michigan can only do wrong in the eyes of the NCAA. Jim Harbaugh gets fucking suspended for buying a kid a fucking cheeseburger. Some of the most obscene shit I've ever seen. You know how many coaches have came to kids' houses with fucking luxury takeout? Like, let alone just a cheeseburger on the way back when he was meeting a kid. It's like, think about it like this. You're in a situation where you're like having a meeting or something and you're on the way back and you're 18 years old and someone's talking to you about your future. Is it weird if he buys you a fucking McDouble? Is that really that fucking strange?
Fair.
I think Mike Orr literally I think that was a plot line in Blindside, wasn't it? That he got bought a fucking burger by the coach? Like, for fuck's sake, where do we draw the fucking line?
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah.
All right, so apparently... okay, let me read this real quick. The Michigan football program has... So Michigan confirmed to ESPN on Monday that the Big Ten has issued a formal notice of potential disciplinary action against the Wolverines. According to Yahoo Sports, the NCAA has revealed its investigation findings to the Big Ten, and among the disciplinary action the league has considered is a multi-game suspension for Coach Jim Harbaugh. Yahoo Sports that the NCAA Yahoo reports that the NCAA has not found evidence of Harbaugh being directly involved with alleged advanced scouting. Not surprised if he gets suspended because technically, if you want to go by the rules, like it's the coach is held accountable either way, which I disagree with. But I mean, that's what the rules say.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You know, like
any final?
It's just bullshit. Is where I'm at. You know, like I've never seen a coach get targeted like this. The closest thing, which this isn't comparable to that, but the closest thing this compares to is the Brian Flores situation in Miami when that happened. Now, this isn't comparable to that, but we're talking about a witch hunt that's even similar, or that's super similar to what happened to Brian Flores for speaking out.
Yeah, I get that. Any final thoughts, real quick, before we move on to recap?
Nope.
Righty then.
What game we start?
Let's get right into it. The Tennessee Titans versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Titans won 20-16.
Cap. They almost did. They almost won 23-20.
I mean, the Steelers won 20-16. Shit, my bad.
Yeah. No, Steelers won. Titans almost came back. Will Levis.
Ended with the interception, I believe, if I remember correctly.
It ended with the interception. You know, he threw like 2 ducks before that should have been picked, but he kept that drive going. He stayed calm, showed composure. You know, I started Will Levis over Kenny Pickett last week on my fantasy team, and that ended up being a mistake. But you know, I should know better than to start a quarterback against the Steelers defense. It seems like TJ Watt is the fucking best edge rusher in the NFL, best middle linebacker in the NFL, best cornerback in the NFL. Just he's the best player in the NFL at this point. He's the heart and soul of the Steelers team. Fuck it, throw him in at quarterback at this point. Throw him at offensive coordinator too.
You might as well at this point. Fuck.
He you know, there's a stat line that's been going around. TJ Watt. So with his last week, not against the Titans, but the week before, he got his 7th interception in his career, which is pretty good for an edge rusher within the first 7 years of his NFL career. So that's averaging 1 per season. The only other player to have 70 sacks and 7 interceptions through his 7th season is Lawrence Taylor. Very good company. And the thing is that we're leaving out about that stat line. TJ Watt has 14.5 more sacks.
Right. So on the offensive side of the ball, is there anything that impressed you
about the Steelers?
Yeah.
You know, George Pickens had a horrible game. And there's some drama there. You know, he was posting on social media, free me, and unfollowed Kenny Pickett and the Steelers on Instagram and Twitter. So he's upset. But honestly, the run game was looking functional. That's what they needed. Deontay Johnson was looking like a stud. You know, the offensive line was looking solid. Kenny had time in the pocket. The offense looked good. The play calling was still questionable at times. Like, I don't know. Like, there's still multiple plays where you're like, huh? But, you know, I think Matt Canada being on the sidelines helped a lot more than him being in the booth. You know, it seemed like the players were finally starting to resonate with like the identity that he wanted. You know, him talking to him face to face and being like, "This is what I need from you." You know, like it seems like that helped. If that's what ends up happening, then cool. You know, if the Steelers are able to put up 20 points a week, they're going to win a lot of games with how good this defense is. They're just going to.
The defense is going to win them games, kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like the offense just has to be barely above average, and the defense will keep them in a lot of games and help them win.
Yeah. They'll get playoff wins at this rate. If this is a formula we see win Super Bowls, you know, like
we saw it with the Patriots.
Yeah, we saw it with the Ravens. You know, Joe Flacco Ravens. Joe Flacco had that insane playoff run, but it also helped that, you know, his playoff Ravens had, I think, were plus 11 on turnover ratio throughout the postseason. So over 4 games, they were averaging an extra 3.5.
one of the most dominant defenses.
Yep.
We saw it with
2008 Steelers. Yep. Seahawks too.
Cool.
Yep.
So like we see this constantly where we see an above average offense, but an elite level defense carry them to Super Bowl. You know, so like I wouldn't be surprised if we talk about them late in the season.
You know? And if the season ended today, the playoff picture would literally be all AFC North teams are in.
Yeah, that's wild to think about.
If the season ended today, it would literally be Ravens would be the number 2 seed, Steelers, Browns, Bengals in that order, and that would be the playoff picture.
But I mean, honestly, like come season end, like that's not unrealistic to have all
not
4
at
of them
all.
in. You know, so like
not at all.
That's the even crazier part. But we've seen 3 make us a 1 out of 4.
Yeah, that would be insane. And think about this. Imagine if all those teams make it, how big of a deal it would be to win the AFC North. Because that guarantees you home field advantage against these rivals.
Mm-hmm.
That's big. Massive. Rival game at home in the playoffs. Oh, man. You know, the Titans offense, that was something I wanted to circle on too. You know, the Titans offense did look good. The Steelers the scoreboard doesn't reflect it, but they were getting yards. They were playing very good ball. Just the Steelers defense didn't let them score a lot. You know, and
no, they kind of held Will Levis in check a little bit and got that turnover, which I think was very key for them.
Yeah, I mean that was the dagger at the end of the game. You know, turn the blade, and the Tennessee Titans offense looked really good. They just weren't able to like finish off drives. And against a defense like the Steelers, I say this every week: they're bend but don't break. That's how they win games. That's why you see games being so close. But the Steelers offense should have put up like 2 more touchdowns, honestly. Like the defense played really well. The Titans offense looked good. The Steelers offense looked great for the first time this season. And I'm really excited to see where they go. But they just need to finish off drives more consistently and not get off the field on 3rd downs.
Yeah, this was the first time I was like, where was the Steelers offense all year long?
Yeah.
You know, as I was watching Dame, I was like, all right, damn, okay. They showed up today.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And I haven't been able to say that beforehand.
No, you watch
beforehand.
No identity. No identity. That was it. Like no identity at all.
Beforehand, I was like, oh, typical Steelers offense, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But today I was like, damn, okay.
And
no real notable players, I think, from the receiving side of the ball.
I want to point out Joey Porter Jr. matched up with DeAndre Hopkins. I think it was 17 snaps, allowed 1 reception for 14 yards.
And D-Hop ended it on 11 targets, 4 receptions for 60 yards.
Yeah.
So the Steelers defense kept him in check. Only 4 catches on 11 targets. That's impressive.
Joey Porter Jr. is a rookie, man. Think about this. We traded Chase Claypool for Joey Porter Jr. And he just locked down D-Hop. And everybody's like, oh, D-Hop's washed. D-Hop's washed. Was D-Hop washed literally 7 days ago when that fucker put up 4 TDs? Was he? Or was it 3 TDs? I'm sorry. I think it was only a hat trick.
3 touchdowns.
I'm sorry.
3 touchdowns. Come on now. Come on.
Yeah, Will Levis had 4, but D-Hop only had a hat trick. D-Hop only had a hat trick last week. Shut the fuck up.
No, I knew the Titans weren't going to play like they did last week because of him. But I honestly expected them to win because I thought they had the better offense.
Yeah.
But they also had a much worse defense. So it's like tough loss from Kyle
You almost
Phillips
predicted the score. You almost predicted the score backwards. You said Titans win 20-17.
Yep.
Travis and I were right.
I knew it was going to be a close game.
Travis and I were right. We were a little bit off with the score, 24-17 respectively each. We agreed on that.
Still pretty close. Still close though.
Yeah, that brings us to one where we all voted one way, and we were all wrong. Why do we keep doubting the Chiefs? Why? At what point do we learn our lesson to not think the Chiefs are going to lose anymore?
From here on out, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, they're 7-2. We need to put some fucking respect on Patrick Mahomes' name.
Well, like for me, it's just the Dolphins, I think, have the better defense and the better offensive weapons. Not the better weapons, the better skill positions. But
I think their offensive line's better.
Yeah. But I think where the difference maker is, especially in this game, was the quarterback.
Yeah. Tua isn't to Patrick Mahomes level. But, the Dolphins, like, here's the thing. The Dolphins were down 21-0 going into the half. Like, matchup again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins came back full of piss and vinegar.
Yeah.
This is one where, like, I'm excited to see it happen in the playoffs. I'm really excited because the Dolphins are a playoff team. Is there any question about that yet? Like, at all?
No. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to probably be the 2 or the 3 seed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Be my guess.
I think the Ravens are going to be 2 pretty comfortably. Maybe even 1, depending on the Chiefs. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm putting the Dolphins at, as 3. I don't really have too much to talk about this game. It was a really good game. Like, it was a fun game. I don't look back and I'm like, anything crazy happened. You predicted that that the Fins would win 31-24. Travis said 31-29, and I said 31-28. So we were right about it being a 1-score game. It was a close matchup.
The team.
Yeah. Yep. So we knew it was going to be a close game. We weren't doubting that. Just, the thing is with the Dolphins is I was really hoping that they'd get this win personally because, like, I really wanted them to have that statement win. Like, Tua, you could argue Tua played better than Patrick Mahomes this game too. Like,
at times he looked better.
Yeah, like, this was just a good matchup. Like, good defense, good running games on both sides. It's just like a balanced football game. If I was showing someone what a balanced football game looked like, I would show them this film because it was just the perfect game for that. You had explosive plays here and there and nothing too crazy all the time, but, like, just a perfect show off game for, like, what football is. And I think they really nailed that.
And you didn't really have any explosive plays on offense from either side, which, I mean, kind of expected because they both have explosive players. But you didn't get that. You didn't. It
was almost like a really respectful game.
Exactly. I mean, the best you had was Tyreek with 8 catches and 62 yards. Right? That's the most catches we had on the Chiefs side. The most we had was 3 catches from their backup tight end, Noah Gray, for 34 yards. So it's like Travis Kelce didn't even get that involved. Maybe it's because Taylor Swift wasn't there. I don't know. But it was a pretty even game. It was a pretty
Taylor Swift makes Kelce? Kelce is nothing without Taylor Swift?
Arguments there. It was an even game. It was an even game. It was a fun game to watch, and I'm hopeful we get to see it in the playoffs because it'll be that much more intense.
Yeah.
Now, real quick, because we were talking about the playoff picture, I kind of want to touch on that real quick. The AFC side of things. If it ended today, the Chiefs would be 1, Ravens 2, Jags 3, Dolphins 4, Steelers 5, Browns 6, Bengals 7.
Yep.
So AFC North gets the last 3 spots.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Fucking wild.
I said literally in that order: Steelers, Browns, Bengals. In that order. If it ended today, it would be Ravens at the number 2. I was like, the AFC North is fucking tough, dude. Every win matters.
It's getting to that point where it's like the new toughest division.
Yeah, that's what I was saying going into. That's what I was going into the season saying. I would say in the NFL, I seen a stat line earlier today. It was showing win losses for every division. I think the AFC North, it's like 22-7 or some shit. or something like
That's
that. 3
fucking
or
wild.
11, 27 and 11, I think it was. So like just like dominant performances from every team, and like every other division is like close to 500 because you have like one shitter team that just fucks it up, and then two mid teams and one team that's supreme. Usually, the AFC North's tough, and here's the thing too.
It's gonna be.
I had questions saying if the Steelers were going to be fraudulent last week. Like after the Steelers game this week, I asked this question: if the Steelers, Browns, or Bengals were in any other division, would they be competing for a number one spot in their division?
The Browns,
Bengals, Steelers, all three of them.
I think so. Yeah,
I think so too. Like I don't think it's just division oriented. Like
I think it's just that dominance of a team.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they've all played good competition.
Yeah, speaking of dominance in recent weeks, the Minnesota Vikings are turning this damn ship around. Skull! Joshua Dobbs
coming in for relief of Jaron Hall after he gets injured.
Yep.
And then to lead a game-winning drive. That's fucking wild. You can't write a better ending.
Yeah. So, is Joshua Dobbs him?
Bro, I think the Cardinals are dumb for trading him.
Me too.
Honestly, like if I'm the Cardinals, I'm probably holding on to Joshua Dobbs and I'm letting Kyler Murray sit a little bit or the whole year. Joshua Dobbs finished game 20 of 30, 158 and 2 touchdowns. Not great passing, but pretty good passing. And then he had 7 carries.
2 TDs is huge.
Yep. And then he had 7 carries for 6 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
So he had 3 touchdowns on the day.
200 plus yards. Yeah.
Yep.
Like he carried that Vikings team, man.
He's him. He's a damn good football player. Yeah. And I think he's gonna probably be the starter for Minnesota going forward. He should be. I think he's the better quarterback, the best thing for that team after Kirk Cousins got injured. You know? And the Vikings were very smart to trade for him and not even paying that much either.
No. What was it, a third?
Hold on. I'll look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm so bummed the Steelers let him go, man.
All right, let's see.
Because you see when he was with the Steelers, he was smart. He's a good quarterback.
The Cardinals traded Dobbs and a 7th round pick next year for a 6th round pick.
That's it?
Yep.
A 6th round pick.
Mm-hmm. And they got Dobbs and a 7th round in return.
So pretty much a pick swap and Dobbs.
Yep.
With no cap hit, essentially.
And they got a starting caliber player.
That's insane. So, like,
the Cardinals are dumb for letting them go that cheap.
Yeah. Wow. Like, the Steelers let him walk in free agency, and I was kind of bummed about it because, like, I knew he had potential when he was playing for the Steelers. When a couple of years ago, I was like, they're talking about, oh, Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph. I was like, what about Joshua Dobbs? He's on our practice squad still. Right. Like, he was always like a guy you'd see in preseason, and he was just making accurate throws. Nothing too insane, just dink, 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 automatic. And
so do you think he wasn't flashy enough to get noticed like that? Or
okay. I think that's exactly it. I think he was drafted in the 3rd round. So like he was like decent capital was invested into him. The thing was like he was taken in that weird era for the Steelers when Ben was like starting to talk about retiring. So we were kind of trying to get here to just like fill in for a couple of years while we like go and transition to our franchise quarterback with a like higher pick. Then Ben played for 5 more seasons. So like the Steelers just have like the Steelers get in this position where, we have the 15th overall pick and Kenny Pickett's there. He's our guy. And I think Kenny Pickett will end up being their guy. But, the thing is with Josh Dobbs, like Rudolph, because Mason Rudolph is kind of a loose cannon. For a backup QB, Like the thing is with Joshua Dobbs, Vikings getting Dobbs is not just the right now, but the long term. You know, Kirk Cousins goes down again. You know, we're talking about like a Charlie Batch like quarterback. You know, we're talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick type quarterback. You know, not even Ryan Fitz, but you know, more of a Charlie Batch type. You know, more of a Jared Goff before he became like what he is with the Lions right now. You know, a type of quarterback that is going to be consistent. He's not going to win you a ton of games necessarily, but he can take care of the ball and score when your team makes it opportune for him.
Right, and he's going to keep the game there.
He's going to keep the game close. You know, and when I'm talking about a backup quarterback I like, that's why I've been liking Zach Wilson's performances so much this season, is because he's been keeping games alive. When you're the backup quarterback, it's not your job to go pass for 300 yards. It's not. Right. Your job is to win the fucking game and go home and don't get too used to your cleats being strapped up. You know, like that's your job. You know,
yeah. I think you said it perfectly. But no, I mean, as far as this game though, like Dobbs is for me the only performance that stood out for the Vikings, because I mean, you had the leading receiver, which was TJ Hawk, which was to be expected. And they had Jordan Addison, which has been playing very good as a rookie. He had 5 catches, 52 yards, no touchdowns, but on 7 targets. So like he's very involved in the offense, just like TJ Hawk is. So I think he's the clear number 2 behind Justin Jefferson, especially when he comes back.
100%.
But without him there, it's TJ Hawk and then Jordan Addison kind of thing. But I think
I think Addison's production will go up once JJ comes back.
Yeah.
100%. Like significantly. Like I think realistically, like 5 receptions, 50 yards is his basement, especially with JJ starting. I think realistically we could see 12 catches a game, 150 yards, and a touchdown or 2 reliably multiple times throughout the rest of the season once JJ comes back.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say more like 8 to 9 points, but 10 points, again, that works out great. Because, I mean, that's all you really want for just someone you're kind of plugging into your flex. You know, you don't expect that 20-point game. But he's capable of it.
I think at worst he's a 10-point guy. But I think realistically, we're talking about there being like 8 weeks left in the season. Like, I think at least 3 of those games, because Justin Jefferson is like on the teeter coming back right now, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So let's say he comes back this upcoming week. I think 3 games this season, he's going to be a 20-plus point fantasy performer.
He has that potential. I'll agree with that. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but I think he definitely has that potential. I think, for me, I think he'd be more in like that 15-point range.
Yeah.
More than that 20-plus point range. I wouldn't be surprised if he explodes for those 20, 25, 30-point games 2 or 3 times this year, because he has that ability.
Yeah.
We've seen it.
I'm calling in a hot take right here. He will have 3+ 20-plus point performances for the rest of the season. I think he is an auto lock start. I think he's an auto lock starter at this point.
Okay.
I just don't think, because the big question before this week was, how will they look without Kirk Cousins?
Yep.
And we see what they looked like. And I don't know about you, but I like how the Vikings look against a good Falcons team. You know, the Falcons, like, if they weren't playing a team that wanted to win just a little bit more. How do you feel about Heineke starting?
Makes me sad because I have Ritter on my team, but I think he's the best option for that team. As much as it pains me to say, because I think that the Falcons look a lot more dynamic with Heineke. They looked very stale,
stiff,
and look like they look like they couldn't open up the playbook with Ritter as a quarterback. But it seems like they could do that with Taylor Heineke.
You know, I almost feel like with Ritter, it felt like when Zach Wilson was piloting the Jets like 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, his rookie year. Yeah.
Yeah, or even when Geno was on the Jets. It was just like it was almost
for some reason.
It felt like his release on the ball
and
slow and
a lot happening
for some reason.
And incredibly predictable.
Yep.
Too, I would add.
Yeah, and
so
I don't think I don't think he has the legs to provide them the mobility that they're seeking at quarterback either. You know, like he can rush sort of, but not effectively. Heineke could do it a little bit better, but honestly, like the Falcons are in a weird spot because they're just like a high draft pick away from being elite, and that being quarterback. And like the question is just going to keep coming up now. Like Algier is good enough to be a number 1 running back. I think we can agree on that. He got half the carries last week, 39 yards, a touchdown. Wasn't as productive as Bijan, but Bijan had 11 carries, 51 yards. And at this point, would you rather just had Algier have like 20 carries, 18 carries, and then Cordell Patterson get 5, and then they have a very similar stat line on the ground? Because that's realistic. We can look at the stats and be like, okay, they might have lost 5 to 10 yards on the ground without Bijan, and have a rookie quarterback that like actually could put you in a playoff race. I almost feel like the Bijan pick is turning out to be a meme pick. It's the type of pick that a 12-year-old made on Madden. Especially when you had Algier there that proved that he was ready. And you're still using him like that. You're still using him like that back that is about to enter his prime. I get what they're doing, but you can't sit there and have a running back taken that highly and then go and pass the ball 38 times. You just can't. You're committing to this identity. You got Kyle Pitts extremely high. You got Bijan extremely high. Your identity is a smash mouth fucking play. Okay. Kyle Pitts finally had 4 receptions, 56 yards on 5 targets. So he had a pretty solid game, but feed the fucking ball to your running backs and pass 15, 20 times a game. That's why it was okay.
I think that's where the Falcons could really win it.
Yeah.
Lean heavy.
Make it so those 10 of those 20 passes are play action or RPO screens. Like literally 13, 14 of your passes are screens or play action or RPO. Like pretty easy completions. Any QB in the NFL, every third string quarterback in the NFL can do that. You got Taylor Heineke at the helm. We're not talking about you having fucking Kirk Cousins or Patrick Mahomes. You got Taylor Heineke. Fucking let Bijan fucking run the ball. And when Bijan needs to take a breath, give the ball to Algier. And then when Algier needs to take a breath, you give it right back to Bijan. That's how you fucking win games.
Because you have a hell of a dynamic duo right there.
Yeah.
Right? 2 starting caliber players. And you have 2 starting caliber running backs in NFL. Feed them both 15
both going into the prime. Both entering prime state. Yeah.
That's how you win games.
What happens when this good Falcons defense literally could sit on the sideline for half a quarter because the Falcons just control the game that hard? Like how have the Steelers been winning games? Everybody asks that. How has the Steelers been winning games? The Steelers are ranked 4th all time at the halfway point of the season in negative yards net for total of the season. Net total yards. They're ranked 4th worst all time. And they're the only team on that list all the way down to 33rd to have a winning record, let alone a winning record that would get them in the playoffs right now. The big question is, how are the Steelers doing it? It's because even though they don't end up scoring on a lot of these drives, their drives take forever. It's like pulling teeth out. They get a first down, maybe 2, and you're like, yeah, woo. It's annoying as a Steelers fan because, you just watch 6 minutes of the Steelers offense stalling out, but their defense gets back out on the field and they take care of business. And next thing you know, they win by 1 score. because they got short field position or something. The Falcons defense can do that. They just, 23 rushes just isn't enough when you're talking about a game that is this grindy, like the Vikings Falcons matchup was. You get 30 carries on the ground, and Joshua Dobbs might be a nobody at this point because he was on that line. But now we're willing to say Joshua Dobbs is legit. Would you start Joshua Dobbs in 12-man leagues?
I would. Honestly, at this point. Especially if he's the starter name going forward. I'd probably put him in there.
I think the only reason he wasn't starting was adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was the number 2 going into the game, and he only went in because of the injury.
Yeah,
right? But that following week, I bet he would have been starting.
Yeah, I think he was the starter this upcoming week no matter what. He just, he was moving into Minnesota and everything. I bet you the Vikings weren't expecting. I already know how Dobbs is because remember, he was in the Steelers organization for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I already know how Dobbs is. That dude landed, he hired a moving company, and he went right to the facility and started watching film and started learning that playbook. Mm-hmm. He's a fucking rocket engineer. Dead ass.
Yep.
That's what his collegiate study was rocket science. This dude is a fucking rocket scientist. He can get in and learn a brand new playbook within a week.
Yep. I agree. I'm excited to watch him next week. Honestly.
Me too.
All right. So the next game, the Seahawks versus the Ravens. A good old-fashioned ass whooping. The Ravens won this one pretty handily, 37-3.
Mm-hmm.
Were you surprised at all?
So, I had the Seahawks winning this game 30-24. Travis picked Ravens to win. By the way, all 3 of us were wrong again against the Falcons. We all bet against the Vikings. We were all wrong. And you were wrong this week against the Seahawks. You said Seahawks win 35-24. I said Seahawks win 30-24. Travis said Ravens win 27-24. I thought this game, I didn't think it was going to be like this. I thought it was at least a close matchup. I think I was saying that last week. I was like, I think the Ravens will end up winning, but I'm going to say the Seahawks going to win because I want them to. I think that's what I said last week, but I did in my heart of hearts, I knew the Ravens were going to win. I just was trying to put as much good juju in the world that the Seahawks were going to win, but I really was not expecting this. Even in my heart of hearts, in my heart of hearts, I was expecting the Ravens to win by 7 or 10. I was not expecting a 37-3 fucking blowout, a decimation of a team. This is the type of loss where the Seahawks either wake up and they go on a rampage for the rest of the season, or they give up. And I think next week will tell us everything we need to know about the Seahawks team.
Okay.
This is the type of loss where teams are defined on. So
on a blowout coming back from a blowout loss, yeah. How are you going to respond? Are you going to still be demoralized, or are you going to step up to play and actually compete, I guess you could say?
Well, and if I'm the Seahawks, they haven't been winning games handedly. They lost to the Rams week 1, 30-13. They beat the Lions in overtime. It was a fucking squeaker of a fucking game. And honestly, watching that game, that was a game where I felt like the Lions should have won. And I'm not even a Lions fan, but it's just one of those games where the Seahawks kind of weaseled their way into a win. And a win, I take an ugly win over a pretty loss, but nevertheless, they still got it. They they beat the Panthers 37-27, which, seeing what the Panthers are now, that win is a lot more concerning with how close it was. Right. Then they go take care of the Giants 24-3. Okay, now they're getting back to cooking. Then they lose to the Bengals 17-13. And the Bengals, that's kind of what started the Bengals hot streak, was they beat a good Seahawks team. That was a big thing at that time. Then they go beat the Cardinals 20-10, and Joshua Dobbs kind of had a good game that week, but it's just Joshua Dobbs, the only it wasn't even that close really, but you watch the eye test and the game was closer than it should have been. Browns, Seahawks 24-20. I think this was their only notable win this season when you watch the eye test. You go back and watch that game. It was a complete game by the Seahawks. They kicked ass. But then you go and lose like this to the Ravens. Like, your next week is against the Commanders. If I'm
they're no
Pete
slouch.
Carroll,
they're no slouch.
Yeah. If I'm Pete Carroll, I want blood. And the Commanders are the type of team where if they trap you in this game, the Seahawks still got to play the 49ers twice. You know, like the Seahawks still got to play the Cowboys. The Seahawks still got to play the Eagles. The Seahawks still got to play the Steelers. Like, we're not talking about easy games here all of a sudden. Like, now, like, the Seahawks that were once, like, going to win the division, this loss might be what, like, shakes them out of it, especially if they can't bring it back against the Commanders in a dominant fashion. I don't think that a win will just get them back on track. You know, I think if they beat the Commanders, then they go ahead and go beat the Rams. Then they need to beat the 49ers and say, we're legit. We are that team. But if they beat the Commanders handedly, you get to skip that process and you get to just go ahead and go from square zero and just go ahead and get going again. I really wanted to circle on that because, like, this is a team where we might see the turning point on. And I think we've seen the Seahawks be good in the first half of the season. The second half of the season, coming off this loss, they need to win this game against the Commanders in a big way. And it's the perfect team because the Commanders are legit enough where it's not like, oh, you beat the fucking Cardinals, whatever.
Right.
But, you know, you whoop their ass. You whoop the Commanders' asses. They're a legit enough team. You know, like the Commanders are one of those teams where they're just kind of floating around on the bubble right now.
Yeah, because they're still a very solid team. And sometimes the team just needs to get their ass whooped, kind of like how the Seahawks did, to kind of shake them out of it.
Yeah, but I've seen teams fall into the abyss off losses like this too.
Yep, exactly. And the Seahawks don't have an easy schedule ahead of them. They got a very tough second half of the season ahead of them. And it's going to tell us a lot about them. You know?
Yeah, because, you know, moving forward, are the Rams a playoff team? I think they're a bubble team, you know, at this juncture. Fringe bubble. Yeah. You know, they might make a wild card spot. That's kind of where the Rams are. Let's go ahead and say they're not a playoff team. You still got the 49ers. You still got the Cowboys. You got 49ers again. You got the Eagles. You got the Titans, which are a fringe team, which we won't count. But then you got the Steelers. And that's 5 playoff teams throughout the rest of the season. And if you include those 2 fringe teams, that makes it so the only easy matchup is Cardinals in Arizona. That, like, and that's not even necessarily an easy matchup because it's a rival game at your friend's house. Like, it's not right. A matchup where you're not necessarily going to be dominantly, like, taking it home. Like, and plus earlier in the season, they only beat them 20-10. So, like,
but
it's like,
I think that's also because they had Dobbs playing too, you know?
Yeah.
I'm interested to watch it. I think I don't know if it's going to be necessarily a good game that week with Kyler Murray playing at quarterback, but we'll see.
Hey, you know, Kyler might come back and prove it.
That's true. Like you said, though, these next coming weeks are going to tell us a lot about the Seahawks and the team that they are.
Yeah.
There's really no surprises to me on the fantasy side of things.
What about Keon Mitchell? A lot of work.
Well, I was starting with the Seahawks.
Oh, sorry. I got excited.
Kenneth Walker really didn't do anything. 9 carries, 16 yards.
1.78 yards per carry. That's elite.
Yeah. Hey, get off my boy. JSN didn't really do anything, but he had a solid enough game. 6 catches, 63 yards, so a little over 12
I think I called that going into the week. I said, you know, I would start JSN. You know, Njigba looks like legit. Like, and the thing is, you know, when you're lining up against the Ravens, what was I saying literally going into the week? You're going to want to double DK. Tyler Lockett isn't going to be fast enough to go ahead and get off his breaks. He's still going to get 3 to 5 catches. But JSN is the receiver I'd start out of this core because he's going to have the softest coverage. And that's what ended up happening. You know,
Yep.
JSN was the only bright spot on that team, and that was just because of depth and where he was sitting on that line.
Yep. I agree. All right, so move on to the Ravens. Like you want to talk about, lead us off, since you want to talk about them.
Keaton Mitchell, bro, 15.33 yards per carry on 9 carries.
Not good. Not good enough.
Nah, pretty mid. Had a TD. Gus Edwards
Just
had 2
above average.
touchdowns. Bro, if you started this handcuff backfield,
oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, bro. 18
like,
plus.
That's not
18.
even a lot of work. They just got a lot of chunk plays and some goal line work.
Yeah, 36. You know, and that's before receptions. So,
right.
Keaton Mitchell had 1 reception, and Gus Edwards didn't have any. So,
but my boy points. Mark Andrews, though.
Mark Andrews had a fucking stellar game. Yeah, he did. Fucking. Oh
9
my
catches,
gosh.
80 yards.
17 points. Pretty clean stat line. Yeah. OBJ had his first touchdown in forever. Fucking.
Yep.
16-point performance from OBJ. Yep.
Hey, you're not complaining about that. That's pretty good. If you started him, you're happy with that.
Yeah, Lamar was just kind of Lamar, 240 total scrimmage yards. He was legit. Something that I really appreciate about Lamar is, in situations where, it's smart to just go ahead and say, Gus, go be the bus. I hate saying that as a Steelers fan, but that's his nickname. I'll respect it. But don't be comparing him to Jerome. Okay? Mm-hmm. Don't even get me started on that shit. I'm in an AFC North fight club group, and they always be saying, Gus the bus, and it makes me cringe every time. I'll respect it right now. Gus was the bus, 5 carries, 52 yards, 2 TDs. Fine. You can get the bus moniker this week. Go fuck yourself, though.
Hey, fair enough. All right. So our next game of the week, the Cardinals versus the Browns. Another little bit of an ass whooping. Browns won 27-0.
Oh, what did I do this week? Week, Austin?
Right after trading Joshua Dobbs. That's crazy.
Didn't I call Browns win 34-0? 34-0. No. I called the Browns winning. Yes, I did. It's right here. I see it.
No.
Y'all said there ain't no way. There ain't no way the Browns shut them out. I said, what do eggs? No. What do birds lay? Eggs. Zip. 0. I called that shit last week. Look at where I'm at now. I called the shutout. There was no chance that the Cardinals scored any point. I didn't even believe you said that they'd win 10. They'd score 10. Travis, he was saying, let's see here. He didn't weigh in on the Browns. I guess not. Maybe he said the Cards win. That'd be wild if he did.
He probably did, knowing him.
Yeah, we'll just say that Travis said the Cardinals won.
But he was along the same lines as me, though.
I agree. But I called the shutout. That's pretty cool. But this show ain't about me.
Yeah.
I just want to point that out, because, I'm just so good at this. I was only a touchdown off.
You did call the shutout. I'll give you that one.
Thank you.
But my God, did the Cardinals look like a much different team without Joshua Dobbs there?
I feel like Joshua Dobbs is somewhat still spiritually connected to the Steelers. And because he got traded away from the Cardinals and he's less depressed, that energy went to the Steelers and all that depression stayed in Arizona.
I mean, with 11 for 20 for 58 yards and 2 interceptions.
No TDs.
You might be right about that one. You might be right.
Joshua Dobbs has voodoo with him.
Dude, that is crazy.
Yeah.
He also let Clayton Tune led the Cardinals with rushing, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And then Marquise Brown. No one on the Cardinals was worth starting. That's really what I'm getting at. you would have hoped at least they would have some rushing upside with some of their players, but it didn't turn that way because they didn't really rush the ball a whole lot.
Mm-mm. Well,
Frankly,
they did.
didn't
They
really have a
tried
whole
to.
lot of. Yeah, 9 carries. I mean, nothing
they had
crazy.
a total of 16 rush attempts and only 20 attempts through the air. I mean, it was pretty
Mhm.
balanced offense. It was just horrible.
Yeah, they just didn't have a lot of offensive plays.
Yeah, like they weren't
What it
on the
came
field
down to.
offensively a lot. Like check this out. When you switch over to the Browns side, Deshaun Watson, we're skipping ahead real quick, but I just want to point this out.
All right.
Deshaun Watson had 30 attempts, and then on the ground, they had a total of 40 carries. So that's 70 offensive plays compared to the Cardinals, who had 34. Literally double.
Right.
Double the offensive plays. That's obscene. Just obscene.
On the receiving, yeah, you had Marquise Brown and Trent McBride leading the way with
4 and 20, 424 and
essentially
322.
essentially the same stat line. Just Marquise
Yeah.
Brown had 3 more targets.
One more
at
reception
8.
for 2. Yeah.
So nothing
Clayton
crazy from the
Tune,
Cardinals.
is he even worth picking up if you're in like a super flex league? Do you think?
I would not even
do you
think
think
about it.
Do you think you could pick him up as like a depth quarterback for like a week or two?
Not even at this point because Kyler Murray is supposed to be starting. So
This upcoming week? I thought he was 3 weeks out.
No,
Ooh.
I swear I saw something that said he was starting. I could be wrong, but while you look that up, Jerome Ford on the Browns side of the ball, Deshaun Watson had a decent game, nothing great, but he had 2 touchdowns, which helped a lot. Jerome Ford had 20 carries for 44 yards. Kareem Hunt, 14 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. So the Browns were leaning very heavy into the run game, which I love to see because that's what they needed to do, frankly. And then from the receiving side of the ball, Amari Cooper, 5 catches, 139 yards and a touchdown. And then you had David Njoku, 4 receptions, 26 yards and a touchdown. So vast difference. But I think Amari Cooper is their certified lead dog in that
Number
offense.
one.
On the receiving side of the ball. Right.
Yeah,
but I
of
think they love Jerome Ford enough to where that you can reliably start him because he is going to get that work. Kareem Hunt, I would say some weeks, but not every week you could start him. I think it just kind of depends on the opponent, right? Because I think Jerome Ford's still going to be that number 1, but Kareem Hunt's always going to get that work, but he might not get this level of work every week where he's getting 15 carries. Some weeks he may only get like 7 to 8 carries. Some weeks he may get the 15 carries. So you just got to play by opponent, right? But Jerome Ford, I would definitely start every week. Kareem Hunt, if you need someone in that flex spot or whatever, I'd feel comfortable plugging him in. I'd be cool with it.
I could see that.
No
yeah, I'm starting him on our dynasty league. He's a flex spot for me. My fantasy league, I'm in a weird spot because Rahad Shaheed, like every week I start him, he plays like ass, and then every week I don't start him, he's got 30 points on my bench.
Right, and you're like, oh fuck.
Speaking of players that racked up a fuck ton of points on my bench, how about this Houston game? Fucking, you know who I had on my bench this week? Noah Brown. Put up 32.3 points on fantasy.
You done messed up.
Yeah, but I sure fucking did.
But
we skipped a game, but we'll circle back to that one afterwards. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
We'll circle back.
I did not see Noah Brown leading the Texans offense.
Neither did I.
I also didn't see them having 3 receivers, 3 people over 100 yards.
Yeah. CJ Stroud, did you watch this game?
I did. I watched most of it.
Can we agree that this is game of the week?
It is. I mean, CJ Stroud led a hell of a drive with 40 seconds left in the game.
Dude, her and I were watching that CJ Stroud drive. live, and it was just like, whoa, CJ Stroud is legit. He's a top 10 QB in the NFL. I don't think it's an over dramatic statement at this point. He is elite. People are comparing him to Kenny Pickett for some fucking reason. Please stop picking on my quarterback. But I get it. Kenny Pickett's played 14 more games and they got the same amount of touchdowns. Chill the fuck out, dude. Please.
But CJ Stroud had a beautiful pass with 10 seconds for the touchdown.
Dink. Oh perfect on a fucking rope, dude. And that's how he was all game. Mm-hmm. It's just and the thing is, you mentioned it briefly earlier, and then I just was so excited to talk about it. 3 receivers over 100 yards. Dude, that's it's one thing if you're a rookie quarterback and one of your receivers has 250 yards and a ton of yak yardage. No, that's not what it was. He was managing it like a veteran. He was just managing the game and just getting back onto the fucking saddle and saying, no, we're going to win this fucking game. And I haven't seen that poise from a rookie quarterback since Andrew Luck.
Forever.
Since Andrew Luck, which, speaking of which, he just broke his single game passing yard record. Andrew Luck.
And then 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, he broke it, which is 455 beforehand. I haven't seen that type of poise from a rookie quarterback ever. I don't know if a rookie performance has ever been that good at any position. Fuck it. I don't know if a rookie has ever had as good of a game as CJ Stroud just had against the Buccaneers. The thing is, the Bucs, they got Baker Mayfield. They're not elite, but they put up 37 points and they got a good defense. The Bucs have been a trap team all season. We knew that coming into the season. The Texans almost fell into the trap, and then CJ Stroud turned the ship right around and said, no, we're going to win this fucking game. Get your asses out there, and we're going to take care of this. The Bucs, Baker Mayfield had a solid game, and Rachaad White had a solid game too, fantasy-wise especially. Cade Otton randomly 6 receptions, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kudos to him on 9 targets. Do you think Cade Otton is worth the start this upcoming week?
I think it was a fluke.
You think so?
More of a fluke. I do. I mean, if he's a tough one because he's got the size that you want as a reliable tight end, but I don't think he necessarily has the work for it.
Mm-hmm. So
it's because the past 3 weeks he's at 6, 4, and 5.
Yep.
And he's only broke 50 yards one time, which was this past week, but he had 2 touchdowns, which is where he really got that fantasy relevance from.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't reliably start him, but I'd pick him up off waivers if he's there, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like the Bucs offense looks the best when they're utilizing him, like they did earlier in the season against the Bears. Mm-hmm. He had 6 receptions, 41 yards. It's very reminiscent of specifically a Heath Miller type tight end. A Gerald Everett. Someone that. Sure hands, gonna catch the ball when you ping it to him. He's gonna get 8 yards a catch, maybe. Nothing elite, but just
right.
You pass it to him. He's got a giant catch radius, but he moves like a fucking brick.
That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, and in the NFL today, I love seeing tight ends that have that elite catch radius and are amazing blockers, and you sacrifice a little bit of movement for it, but you have a giant guy. I think Cade Otton, especially in dynasty leagues, I would buy him. I would buy him for a 4th round pick, and I think that's a reasonable price for him. I think you can get him cheap, and I think he's worth the investment currently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you could lose too much. Because here's the thing too, long term, who are the Bucs going to have at tight end? Are they going to go draft a tight end? Who's the tight end that you're going to draft if you're the Bucs right now? Because you need a quarterback. You need to start thinking about wide receiver. Because you can't keep Mike Evans and Chris Godwin forever. Offensive line is definitely of concern. Your secondary is of concern.
Cade Otton's only 25 years old.
Yeah,
too.
I think he's still taxi eligible as well. So he's in his second season, so you could get him and taxi him.
Yeah, and the Bucks got some really good key pieces. You know, with Kate Allen locking down tight end, they got Rashad White, which looks like the running back of the future. There as well. They got Baker, who is a serviceable, serviceable mediocre guy until you get your franchise quarterback. He'll keep you in games, but I don't think he's going to win you those close, tight games.
100%.
But then you got, like you kind of said, you got two aging guys in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You got a good young guy, a receiver, in Trey Palmer, who's a rookie, who I think very highly of, and he could take over that role someday, but not anytime soon.
No. Mike Evans still has a lot in the tank, and I don't think if I'm the Buccaneers, I can't let Mike Evans go. Like,
you can't.
Like, he's too good. Yeah, like he's the face of that franchise right now. I don't care that man's balding. I would be balding too if my team was like that. Like, Mike Evans still plays his heart out, and I love that man.
Yeah, he's amazing. And if the Bucks let him go, or let him walk, they're dumb.
Yeah, dumbest decision the franchise has made in a long time. You know, and something else is he's a culture guy too. You can build a culture around him. He's just there to win. You know, and if I'm trying to build that culture back up with the Buccaneers, like, I would pay him whatever he wants, not just because of what he does on the field, but what he does off the field for the team. That type of production that he offers. The Steelers got Allen Robinson this offseason for that exact reason. You know, the Lions got Marvin this offseason for that exact reason. You know, it seems like every team has one of those older guys in the locker room. You know, the Patriots, Juju Smith-Schuster, and, you know, the Raiders with Devontae Adams. You know, that's a big benefit to having. Titans with D-Hop, you know, like, we're talking about a lot of these teams have one of those older guys that, like, have been very prevalent throughout their career. It still has some left in the tank, but they're leading that young locker room. And when you don't have that type of presence and it's not as effective as Mike Evans, then you end up getting in situations like the Steelers are in right now with George Pickens saying he wants out. You know, you end up in situations where, you know, when your guy is a drama queen, like an Antonio Brown, you know, I keep on bringing up Steelers receivers, but, like, in recent memory, you know, it seems like every year the Steelers have a new jackass at wide receiver. You know, Juju Smith-Schuster when he was with the Steelers. You know, like, fucking Martavis Bryant, Chase Claypool, you know, all of them always had something to say. You know, you never hear anything coming out of that Tampa Bay locker room, ever. They keep it quiet. They're there to win, and they're not doing their job very well right now, but they're trying their best. And
it's
another team that was trying their best this week was the Rams.
Didn't go so hot for them, though.
It didn't go too well. You and I said that the Rams were going to win this game. We did predict the Texans won that game, by the way. You were saying Rams win 31-10. I was saying Rams win 31-16. We were off. We were off pretty bad.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
That was a bad one.
That was with the stipulation that Stafford was starting as well.
True.
It was sounding like Stafford. We were saying that with the expectation Stafford was going to start. I think I would have still probably predicted a Rams win, honestly, but not of that wide of a margin.
Not by 17 for sure.
Yeah, not by 17, probably by like 1 point. I would have guessed the Rams won like 21-20. But that would have still been wrong. But I just wanted to admit that I was still wrong, even if Stafford didn't start, I would have still been wrong. So I want to say that. Royce Freeman disappeared. Yeah.
12 for 32. Crazy.
Yeah. Like, and then Henderson just was like mid as fuck too. You know, like they couldn't. I like what the Rams did. They didn't like retreat from the run game. Like they stayed true to it. 22 rush attempts. Like, you know, that's legit. Like,
they tried.
They tried. Just Reipland really didn't do it at quarterback, and they got one-dimensional really quickly. And the Packers just dismantled them because of how one-dimensional they looked. You know, you're right about Jordan Love cooking. Something that helped with that was Aaron Jones. That impact was immediate. It adds so much to that offense to not have 4 people in Jordan Love's face every down.
Yep.
You got to, if you're a defensive line, you got to say, okay, is Aaron Jones coming at us or is it Jordan Love dropping back? And that half a second is the biggest difference when you're talking about a pass rush.
It makes a massive difference in terms of timing, especially too. Because if you do that, especially like it causes that defense to hesitate. If they hesitate, boom, they're done.
Easy completion over the middle.
Line.
Boom. Mm-hmm.
Yep, especially on that defensive line, killer.
Yeah.
No one will know really on the receiving side of the ball. Luke Musgrave led the way with 3 catches. Christian Watson didn't really do anything. Romeo Doubs didn't really do anything. So it's like got a lot of people involved, just no one's stellar fantasy wise, especially.
Yeah, Aaron Jones though, like he's back. First week back,
73 yards.
Yeah, and 4 receptions, 26 yards. So, he had 20 points almost, 19 and a half points on his first week back against a decent Rams team.
Mm-hmm. He had a hell of a game.
So how much of a deal is Aaron Donald to this Rams defense? We got to see him without him this week. Or no, he played this week. But what are we thinking? How much of an impact do you think Aaron Donald has now?
I think he still has a huge impact because you still have to pay attention to him. Sometimes you still have to throw double teams at him because they can't get past just that single coverage type team. So I think you still have to pay attention to him. You still have to respect it. You might argue he lost a step, which I would entertain, but I wouldn't necessarily agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did have 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss in the game as well.
True.
So he still put in work.
Yeah, but at the halfway point of the season, he has 5.5 sacks.
Right.
So he's on pace for 11, but there a couple of years ago, he was at 19 sacks or 20.
Mm-hmm. Which is why I say you still have to respect him.
Yeah, I think definitely you have to respect him, but also I think honestly, if Aaron Jones had a running mate that could help him out, imagine if the Rams got Javon Hargrave instead of the 49ers. That would have been so huge for the Rams, getting a guy like Javon to line up next to Aaron Donald. I would have loved to see it. Imagine Javon Hargrave and Aaron Donald on the same defensive line.
Deadly.
Yeah, you're not running on that team. And I think Rashad Gary was available this past free agency as well.
Yep.
So imagine they get their hands on Rashad Gary as well. Now you have a scary team. Yeah, and I don't think the Rams would be 3-6 right now. I think it's realistic where, if they would have just made a couple smarter moves to not be in cap space hell, then they would be fine. But that brings me to my next point, which is if I'm the Rams, do I want to trade Aaron Donald this offseason?
Ooh. I think it really just comes down to it depends what a team's willing to pay for him.
Because here's the thing, his cap hits a lot. Mm-hmm. He costs a lot. He's going to cost 15% of a team's total cap salary.
Mm-hmm.
So how much is a team willing to pay for that? Because that's the biggest reason you let him go if you're the Rams, unless you get a 3 first-round pick offer for him. But you're not going to get that for him at this point of his career and how big his cap hit is. You're just not.
Let's see. This year his cap hit is $26 million. Next year it's $34 million, and then 2025 is $29 million.
Yeah. So a team's maximum cap space currently is $211 million.
Yep.
So literally I was pretty close with saying 15%.
Mm-hmm.
So and at this point of his career, is a team willing to take on 15% of their cap hit for Aaron Donald? So
That's
like,
a good question.
with that being said, like, do you think Aaron Donald could leave the Rams for a second round pick?
I wouldn't be surprised,
Mm-hmm.
especially being 32. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he stays because the Rams also are not going to take, like some super cheap deal to let go of Aaron Donald.
Yeah. Yeah,
So it's
that's
like, I think it really just comes down to what is the team willing to pay and what are the Rams willing to accept. I don't think
If
they
you're the
accept
Rams,
anything.
would you accept a second round pick for Donald?
Ooh, I don't.
And let me make it a little bit more spicy too. What if it's a team that's a contender? Because let's be honest, if I'm the Rams, I know I'm not a contender this year or next year. I know I'm not. And Aaron Donald is going to waste his last couple years in his prime, or we could send him off to a team that might win a chip and let him leave off happy. Organization, do you have enough respect for him to think about it like that too? We've seen teams do that in the past. Like, it's been a thing that's happened in the past where teams will let a guy walk or trade something at a little bit more of a nice value for the receiving team so their guy's happy.
Yeah, I would probably do it in the offseason.
Yeah.
Right, because his guaranteed salary goes down dramatically, goes down to almost 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a bunch of roster bonuses and things like that. So like if I was going to trade him, I'd wait till this upcoming offseason.
Right.
To do that trade. I would probably take a second round for him, honestly. But I'm not taking anything worse than that.
I think that's
I think he's
where I'm
earned. Yeah, I think he's earned to warrant that, and maybe more, depending on how desperate a team is.
I think he's a first round. Like, I would be willing, like, if cap space wasn't involved, mid first round pick.
Yeah,
easy
for sure.
But like, the thing is, once cap space becomes involved, 15% of a team's total salary would be going to Aaron Donald. He'd be locked down for 2 more years after you got him. And, if you're trading with the Rams for that cheap of a price, they're not going to take any of the cap responsibility.
Nope.
Because
if the Rams are trading him, is to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're giving up a first, like a mid first for Aaron Donald, I'm sure the Rams would be willing to take half his cap salary and say, "Yep, 7%," and then we go and get a guy. Like, I could see that, but like, for that second round price, like, that's no cap salary coverage.
Exactly. All right, so the game I'm excited to talk about, the Washington Commanders versus the New England Patriots. This was the game of average quarterback play because neither one of them really looked fantastic or really looked good.
Boring. It's a boring ass game.
Boring game, boring quarterback play. It's one of the more boring games of the week, really.
Yeah.
In my opinion, besides the blowouts. Because we started the Commander side of ball. Like, Sam Howell looked pretty decent, but not very efficient. 29 of 44.
I'll be honest with you. I watched this game live. I fell asleep. I watched the film of this game. I fell asleep. And then I went to go watch the film of this game again, and I fell asleep again. So
yeah, see, I'm telling you, it's like it was just a boring game.
Not until today did I finish the tape. Like, Sam Howell, like, you look at his stats, and you're like 325 yards, bro. Look at that completion at attempt ratio, bro. Because each one of those passes were the most dink and dunk type bullshit you've ever seen, bro. It wasn't like he was dropping bombs over Baghdad or anything. He was he was solid, and like, on the flip side of the ball, Mac Jones, it was the same exact thing. It was like we almost seen the same offense on both sides of the ball. It's just like the Commanders were a little bit better. It's the most boring West Coast duplicate bullshit offense.
And for like the Patriots, Madre only had 87 yards because he had a 60-yard touchdown run.
Yeah.
So like almost all those yards came on one play.
Yeah.
And then God, this made me so mad of a game because like the Patriots offense just looks stale. It's boring. It's not fun to watch.
What point do you think it's time to say we need a new offensive line if you're in New England? Because mind you, this was a Commanders defense.
I don't think that's the right question to ask. I think it's more at what point do we need a new quarterback?
See, I'm not sold on Mac Jones being a bust yet, personally.
This is year 3.
Here's the thing. When has he had a good offensive line? And when has he had a good run game? The Patriots haven't really given him the tool set to succeed yet. You know, like, call me crazy, but this reminds me a lot of like Peyton Manning's first few years in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't have all the tools necessary right away. And Peyton Manning was one of those quarterbacks you got to see his bumps and shines immediately. You know, like he had a bad rookie year. He had a mediocre second season. And then his third year, he finally came on. But that's when, you know, they invested so much into the offense. You know, you got Marvin Harrison coming into his own at that point. Then you go ahead and get a couple pieces on the offensive line, like Jeff Saturday. You know, I think he's drafted 2 years after Payne was drafted, you know. Like you finally start getting all those pieces together, and now you're starting to have that elite offense. And that's where you get the sheriff. You know, I watch Mac Jones, and the thing is, like, look at how much pressure he gets in the pocket. He never, ever gets a clean step. And, like, a lot of times, a lot of his passes are 50-50 balls that the wide receiver just doesn't finish. Like, I feel like, imagine if George Pickens was on the Patriots right now. Mac Jones would be a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback with some of those 50-50 balls that end up being picks or incompletions.
I think they need to, before anything, really invest in the skill set of the offensive weapons. Not really offensive line or the quarterback, because I think the offensive line is good enough. Not good, not great, but I think they are good enough. Mac Jones, I think, is a very smart and talented quarterback. But where they've lacked for a very long time, and I don't think you can really argue, is in their receiving.
I agree.
The Patriots don't invest in their receiving. They don't draft those top tier wide receivers. They would rather invest in the defense. So I think until that actually changes, we're not going to really see a new look, talented Patriots offense, frankly.
Yeah.
But I think Mac Jones could be that quarterback that leads them to greatness, but I don't think he's going to get there because he's essentially going to be punished, frankly, punished by the Patriots because they're not going to give him those skill players.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just got done talking about his dad, but you know, with the direction the Patriots season's going, do you take Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I would like to think so, but I don't think it's going to happen.
They just take Kool-Aid, say, fuck it, we'll match you up with Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah. It's like I would like them to take him, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Also, because I want to point this out. Yeah. When Rams, you and I both were wrong about that. Texans, we were both right about that. And then Patriots, you said 24-21. I said 17-10.
Yeah, so sad. But it's fine. I just hope we actually, at this point, I kind of just want us to continue losing to get as high of a draft pick as we can, honestly. Because until they make some serious changes, and God, I know we've talked about this before, but like, at one point, do you pull Bill Belichick from being the GM and just have him be a coach? You know? So I think that's a very real discussion they're going to have coming in the future, like especially Robert Kraft and the Kraft family. But it's almost, I think, time. If not this year, then definitely next year.
I almost feel like, you know, I feel like I feel like it's almost like I've thought about this subject a lot since we started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost feel like it's sacrilegious to be saying, I don't know. And I don't think it's realistic. Like I think Bill Belichick like has earned it. And I think that the only reason Bill Belichick's still coaching and being the GM, he's already proven enough. But I think he wants to win one without Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like the situation the team's in, he recognizes that. And like imagine this Patriots offense if they had Marvin Harrison Jr. Imagine it. And they still have Juju. And they get to use Juju where Juju's best, which is in the slot.
Yep.
He's essentially a faster tight end. So, and he has better route running than a tight end.
And then you have Hunter Henry as well. So it's like,
yep.
It's like I get it. I want it to happen. I just don't think it's going to.
Probably not. And you know how the Patriots are. Watch them go ahead and pull something off where they end up going 9-8 and get a middle of the round draft pick.
I would cry.
You know what's going to happen? They barely miss the playoffs. They pick in 15th overall again.
I would cry. Dude, I don't really want to think about it.
Yeah. Let's go Pats.
I don't want to think about it. No. All right, so next game of the week, Saints versus the Bears. Yep. Saints won this game pretty handily, 24-17.
Oh, did I have a perfect prediction right here?
No.
I sure did. Saints win 24-17. You were very close as well, saying 24-10.
Ooh.
But this game was one of the most boring fucking snooze fests of a fourth quarter I ever seen. It was like the Saints were like, please, don't let us win this game. Please. And just kept giving the ball back to the Bears. Aaron and I were fucking watching the fucking Bears-Saints game. And the Bears got the ball back like 3 or 4 times at the end of that game. And they just like couldn't fucking do anything. Tyson Bagnet, nothing.
He kind of gave the game away.
Yeah, dude. I think they literally had. Let me double check this. So in the fourth quarter, turnovers. Yeah, he did. So in the fourth quarter, listen, after the Saints got that last touchdown, this is how it goes down. Saints go and get the touchdown. There's about 10 minutes left on the clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bears get the ball. 7 seconds later, interception. Saints get a turnover on downs. Bears get the ball back, and in 2 minutes, another interception.
Mm-hmm.
They force the Saints to punt. The Bears punt it back. The Saints miss a field goal. The Bears get the ball back, and 3 plays later, fumble the ball.
Yep. It's like you're not going to win a game with 5 turnovers.
No. And the Saints should have won much more handedly than 24-17. I don't think the Saints were really winners this game, if you wanted to be honest. You have 5, you're +5 on the turnover category, and you only win by a touchdown. There's a lot more red flags than it would appear on the scoreboard.
No, they should have won by at least like 3 touchdowns. With 5 turnovers. They should have won by double digits, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Not a touchdown.
Like where's Alvin Kamara's usage? Like why the hell is Alvin Kamara only got 9 carries when you have 5+ on the turnover board? That can't happen. You need to have Alvin Kamara having 15, 16 carries. Make it so Derek Carr doesn't have fuckers in his face all night.
Yeah, and he only had
help a brother
5
out.
targets this game too, as well, which was mildly surprising.
This is my official Bat Talk game of the week. Bat Talk bullshit. Ass fucking booty cheeks game. I haven't seen this bad of a fucking offensive performance all season. Like, I know it's 24-17, but it was just like no team wanted to win that game. No one wanted to win that fucking game. And I hate watching games like that.
The Saints were just like, all right, I guess we'll play. And they played just good enough. Because they could have they could have very easily lost this game.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing, because Derek Carr didn't play horribly inefficient. He didn't have any turnovers. He was 25 or 34, but only 211 yards.
Yep.
And then they were decent at running the ball, but not great. They didn't really run it as much as I thought they should have. And then they didn't target their key players like I thought they should have.
I agree.
So like Alvin Kamara should definitely get more than 5 targets because that's how they've been dominant in the past games. Chris Olave should have got. I mean, he got 8 targets. He got about what I thought he would, but he didn't get the yardage.
I mean,
he was going to get.
Something I noticed in the All-22 film was Eddie Jackson was a fucking stud this game for the Bears.
Yeah.
He kept that game alive single-handedly. Eddie Jackson's one of my favorite safeties in the NFL. So the Bears got a couple of my favorite players in the NFL. They got Tevin Jenkins and they got Eddie Jackson. And the thing is with Eddie Jackson is he's just a stud. You know, he doesn't get his roses, but he's the type of player where like he has a Minkah Fitzpatrick type impact on the game, you know, at safety. And he deserves to get credit because multiple plays that game, you know, he's coming in on run support. You know, a big thing with Alvin Kamara that I'm bringing this up on was Eddie Jackson was at safety, was making it so Alvin Kamara couldn't get out of control. It was almost like he was playing man-to-man on him on some snaps, like almost like second man, like vertical hook coverage over the top type shit. So then the middle linebacker could just cover underneath. And I think that helped the Bears stay alive in the game. And if they didn't have 5 turnovers on offense, the Bears could have easily won this game.
And it was those 5 turnovers that hurt them. And a lot of them were in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, you know, Tyson was holding on to the ball way too long. I don't even blame it on their offensive line. You know, it seemed like he was just sitting there waiting to get hit. You know,
he's like, come hit me, please.
Please. Please. I have a kink.
That's oh my God.
So just rounding this out. You're right about Saints winning 24-10. I had a perfect prediction. Saints win 24-17. Travis said Saints win 27-17. This next game, Colts-Panthers. You say Colts win 31-17. Travis said 31-14. And then I said 27-14. I was close.
Yeah, you're 1 point off.
I think I even said at the beginning of it, I said, I think it's going to be 27-13, maybe 14. So I was right on that line.
But you went 14, so you're 1 point
I went 14. I was 1 point off.
But you were the closest.
That was the closest.
And with the Colts side of the ball, like, again, it's kind of another boring game almost, where the Colts did enough and they were efficient on the offensive side of the ball, which is, I mean, is really all you can ask for.
Yeah, you know, the Colts took care of business against a team that they should have taken care of business against. I think it's that simple. They won by 2 touchdowns. It's just one of those matchups where Gardner Minshew managed the game beautifully. They let Jonathan Taylor carry the rock. He took care of business, grinded out the yards that they needed to. This is what you want to see, that balanced offense that I'm talking about. You know, they had 25 carries on the night. They had 26 pass attempts. Hold out your finger like Thanos because everything's perfectly balanced over in Indianapolis.
It was that game, and it was surprising.
Yeah.
But, I mean, really the only ones we're starting on the fantasy side of things was probably Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. Because Taylor also had 5 catches for 22 yards. So he also got, you know, extra 7.2 points right there. Plus his rushing work. And then Michael Pittman got you almost 14 points. 14 and a half points. So, like, pretty solid day. After that, though, it's like no one.
Yeah.
From the Colts. And then from the Panthers, like, a lot of people are calling Bryce Young one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. And so far, he is not performing.
I think the thing is with Bryce Young is we knew coming into the season, like, he was going to need at least a year to develop. And that was kind of the knock on him coming out of college. You know, him going to the Panthers was kind of ideal because the Panthers weren't in a position to win this season. And they were like, get our guy to go ahead and start leading our organization. And I think they probably told him that. They were like, our expectation for you is to make it through the season, you know?
Just make it through healthy.
Just make it through healthy. Don't get injured too hard, you know, ideally. And, you know, the thing is, you know, we've seen flashes of Bryce Young looking like he could he could do something. You know, against the Lions, he didn't have an elite game, but 247 yards, 3 TDs, 2 interceptions, only sacked once. Like a lot of games, that's a win. Last week against the Texans, they pulled off that win barely against the Texans. And the Texans are a good team. The Texans are a really good team. 235 yards, TD, no interceptions. He had 103.6 passing rating, and he got sacked 6 times. Like this offensive line is not good. I think Bryce Young is better than the stats suggest as well when you're watching him. It's just like he doesn't get a lot of time in the pocket either. I think the offensive scheme is there. But I think that they knew kind of the situation that they were throwing him into. They knew. I think it's kind of like Trevor Lawrence a few years ago, like, all right, and Joe Burrow, I think they're building their team like the Jags or the Bengals did. Those cat teams, those fucking cat teams have secret fucking meetings, bro. I'm telling you.
I'm excited to watch Bryce Young in the future because I do think he's going to be a much improved quarterback in the second year. But I think it's clear that the Panthers also have some needs that they need to address on the offensive side of the ball for him to succeed in that second year. And if they don't, then it's just going to be same shit, different day.
Yep.
Essentially for him for next year. I mean, the lone bright spot on the offense is probably going to be Chuba Hubbard.
Yep.
Carrying the ball 16 times for 58 yards. No one really on the receiving side. I mean, he had Hayden Hurst, but he had just 2 chunk plays for 54 yards. So nothing crazy. Kind of a boring game, but I think it could have been a lot different if Bryce Young didn't throw those 3 interceptions. Personally.
Me too. I think the game would have been a lot different if it was even like 2 interceptions, like score on one of those drives, get a stop. You don't have that full momentum swing, and next thing you know, the Panthers are alive in this game because they're only behind by 7. Like, that's realistic.
Speaking of Giants
Interceptions?
versus the Raiders.
Yeah.
Raiders take care of business, 30-6.
Yep.
Not
Raiders,
really surprised.
You took Raiders at the beginning of the week. You said 20-17. Travis took Giants 21-17, and I said Raiders 24-17.
So you and I had the team right, but not the score right necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, I was the closest again, but that's okay.
Right. Whatever. You're still wrong.
Whatever.
Yeah. You're still wrong. But I think a lot of that had to do with Daniel Jones getting hurt. Unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%.
Tommy DeVito had to come in. But Tommy DeVito wasn't bad. He just had 2 interceptions. I get okay. So you could call him bad because of those 2 interceptions. But he was 15 of 20 for 175.
Hey, he's a rookie.
Not horrible.
He's a rookie. It's one of those things where, I mean, like, he hasn't looked very good at all this season when we have had to see him, but like, it's one of those things where, 175 yards, 2 interceptions, like, he had a touchdown, but he also got sacked 6 times. And I feel like ad nauseum, like, we keep circling back to this Giants offensive line and their offensive scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I comfortable saying Daniel Jones is not the issue in New York? Fuck it. Yeah, I am. I really don't think he is. Well, like, for fuck's sake, man, you can't have a guy fucking taking. He's missed 3 games this season, almost 4 if you want to count this one, but he's missed essentially 4 games this season, and he's gotten sacked 30 times.
Right.
Like, for fuck's sake, man. He's averaging, like, he's actually averaging, like, what? Fucking 2. How many sacks a game? Fucking on 6 starts. On 6 starts, 30 sacks. 5 sacks a game is his average.
Almost, yeah.
Dude, you can't have your quarterback getting sacked 5 times a fucking game. And let's see if that stat line follows through on Tommy DeVito. I just want to double check. I believe it did. So Tommy DeVito, He got sacked 6 times.
Yep.
So, like, yeah, the line continues. Like, this offensive line is bad.
Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
So maybe
And
like the Giants need to invest in the offensive line for sure come the offseason more than anything.
Yeah, like, I don't think Daniel Jones is nearly as bad as people think he is. You watch the film on him, and everybody watches where the ball's going. Oh, why did he throw it away? Oh, why was it an inaccurate pass? Okay, you know what? You have a 350-pound fucker rushing at you at fucking full speed. It's not very fast, but if he hits you, bro, those fat fuckers start going downhill. I loved as a kid when I was watching Casey Hampton, that fucking bowling ball of a man start rolling down towards people, and you just see, it's like Indiana Jones. You got to get away from the fucking boulder, bro. And when it's on basic 4-3 sets, like, you cannot let your quarterback get burnt up like that. Like, it's just like, what happens? You're going to get your guys killed. Like, the Giants need to get this figured out sooner rather than later, because this is dangerous how they have their team set up. And they're going to go fucking visit the Cowboys, and now they got to deal with Micah Parsons.
But I mean, the Giants aren't going to figure out this year. It's going to have to be in the offseason.
Yeah, that's true.
How late in the season it is.
That's true. But you know, like, how many sacks do you think the Cowboys are going to get? How many sacks do you think the Commanders are going to get? 45? Yeah, that's fair.
4 to 5,
like,
yeah.
4 to 5. Patriots, like, how many sacks are they going to get? Like, Patriots are a middle defense right now. You know, they have a few injuries. But, like, the Patriots might look like fucking world beaters against the Giants. Packers, you know, like, I can see them getting 6 or 7 sacks against them. The Saints, same thing. Cam Jordan, especially if Cam Jordan's healthy.
Yeah.
You know, Eagles, then Rams, then Eagles, you know, like, over that span of 5 weeks from their bye week all the way out throughout the rest of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave up fucking 40 sacks.
I wouldn't be either. That's the problem. That's their biggest weakness on offense right now, which is why they're 2-7.
Yep.
Because that offensive line. But
you always build it in the trenches.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley was looking good. 16 carries, 90 yards.
How much better would Saquon look if your offensive line was mediocre?
Leaps and bounds better, dude. Like, he would be probably
Adrian Peterson level?
Yeah, one of the leading rushers.
You think he'd be AP level if they had a decent offensive line in front of him?
I think he could be. Yeah,
I think he could be too. That's why
I don't think the Giants' play calling is that level where they're going to just feed the rock.
Yeah.
So I think he'd be better, but I think he'd also be limited just because of play calling.
Right.
Personally.
Ooh.
Oof. All right. One of the games I was actually really excited to watch this week. The Cowboys versus the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Eagles win it 28-23. An exciting game that literally came down to the wire, where the Cowboys were looking like they might win the game because they had the ball inside the 15.
Yep. Then Dak fucked it.
CeeDee Lamb just couldn't get to the end zone. He was like, I think, a yard or two short.
Yeah.
To end the game. It was so sad. But like,
yeah,
Dak looked good.
I seen this fucking video on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I could send it up real quick. It was this fucking Cowboys fan, and he's leaving the bar and he's crying. There's tears, just, you know, big black dude. He's like 250, 300 pounds of just kind of, you know, love. And he's got a Cowboys jacket on and he's crying. And his wife pulls up in the car next to him and she's like, honey, what the fuck you doing? And he's like, they was saying, fly, Eagles, fly. Fly, Eagles, fly. I don't want to hear that. Chill, bro. That's what you get for being a Cowboys fan. Did you actually think y'all were going to win this game?
I mean, it looked like they had a chance to.
They sure did have a chance to, but you know, I thought that
Dak played a pretty good game. 374, 3 touchdowns.
You called it right. You said Eagles 31-20, and I said Cowboys 31-21. So I thought Cowboys were going to win it.
Hell yeah, let's go.
I was,
Eat it,
you know,
Shane.
and here's the thing too, like everybody's going to shit on Dak Prescott. Like, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the Dak hate. Like, people say, oh, he doesn't pass the eye test. What eye test? What eye test do you need him to pass? Like, it's consistent at this point where it's like, sure, he's not the best fourth quarter quarterback. He's not. He's not the clutch type quarterback. But does every quarterback have to be super fucking clutch to be considered good? Like, is that just a stat that has to be there now? Because if that's the case, then Kenny Pickett's elite. Is Kenny Pickett an elite fucking quarterback?
Not even close.
But Dak Prescott's in the same tier as fucking Kenny Pickett in a lot of rankings. Why? Why? Because he's not clutch? So he's the opposite of Kenny? Like, they're on the opposite end of the spectrum? They both have the same record. They're both playoff teams. They're both legit. You know, like, at what point do we stop hating on Dak Prescott?
Honestly, at this point, probably never, because it just kind of seems right. I guess for a lot of people just to hate the Cowboys and to hate Dak Prescott. I think it's the popular thing to do.
Right.
Is what I think it comes down to, honestly, because Dak's not a bad quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. He's probably not going to win you Super Bowls, but he's going to win you enough games to get you to the playoffs.
But at what point do we have to appreciate him as a really good to great quarterback? Like, he's in that category.
Again, probably never, because it's a popular thing to hate him.
What happens if he gets a ring?
Then people are going to change their opinion. I think it's going to have to be Dak is going to have to win for his perception to be changed. Honestly, because like I said, the popular thing is to hate him. So the only way to come over that, I think, is to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Personally.
I mean, Tom Brady proved it.
Yeah. And I hate the Dak hate because he's not a bad quarterback, but he's also, I wouldn't call him an elite quarterback, but he's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having him on my team.
Yeah. Like, imagine if Dak was on a team like, I don't know, the Buccaneers. Imagine if Dak was on a team like, I don't know, the Steelers. Imagine if Dak was on a team like the Lions. You know, like, I think we can agree that Dak's more talented than Jared Goff.
More talented for sure.
Like, imagine if Dak was in that system and he had those weapons. Like, you know, sure, the Cowboys got CeeDee Lamb, but like, who's backing him up? Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks? Oh, you mean Brandon Cooks that was cooked up fucking 3 years ago? Oh, you mean Michael Gallup, who's been galloping a fucking lung for the last 2 seasons and hasn't put up any fucking stat line at all? So you got CeeDee Lamb, and that's it? Like,
yeah, I mean, he had a fucking 11 receptions, 191 yards.
Yeah.
On 16
he had a really good game. Yeah.
And Jake Ferguson also had a really good game.
Yeah, 10 targets.
7 catches, 91 yards. And then on the Eagles side of the ball, Jalen Hurts didn't do anything crazy. He was efficient. He had 2 touchdowns. And honestly, that's all the Eagles needed, apparently.
I mean, Jalen Hurts was still worth 34 points. Fantasy. That's really good.
Yeah, because he also had 10 carries. Because he also had 10 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown.
You know, my highlight this week was DeAndre Swift had 18 carries. You know, it seems like they're going to start riding DeAndre Swift again as this weather gets a little bit colder. You know, I've been talking about it all season. We're starting to get into running back time. You know, I always take running backs like as my flex guys in all my fantasy leagues just because, you know, it seems like late in the season I need a couple extra wins and somehow I squeeze into the wild card spot because running backs start cooking. You know, you start getting those running backs like a Jerome Ford or a Kareem Hunt in those late rounds. You know, DeAndre Swift, you could have probably gotten in the 5th round this past season. You know, like, we're going to start seeing them be productive every single week. Just, you know, running backs are built to be hit in the cold. Wide receivers aren't, you know?
Right, because like kind of like to your point, as the season goes on, you get into more windier games, more snowier games. more weather-driven games, so therefore you are going to run the ball more.
Yeah. Less chance of slipping on a route, less chances of the ball, a straight pass that would normally go like this, going like this behind the receiver or in front, God forbid, and gets picked,
Right.
We're going to start seeing a lot of these guys getting 25, 30 carries a game, especially a guy like DeAndre Swift, who I think the Eagles recognize as a bell cow at this juncture.
They're going to start running him more, and they should, because it allows their offense to be a little bit more open, a little more dynamic, because they finally have that running back. Whereas I think that's kind of what they're missing the past couple of years, is that guy that they could rely on in the backfield, and they have that guy in DeAndre Swift.
Yep, super exciting for him. So this week you have Bengals win 34-27. And I have Bengals win 2017. I was close. You were pretty close as well. You had pretty much 10 points extra on both sides.
I was going to talk about the guy and who they. Joe Burr is who they.
Oh, what's that? What's that? A little ice on the wrist.
It's getting a little cold in here. Who they?
Oh, I need to put my sleeves down. Oh,
who they? Who they?
Hey, babe, you a little cold in here?
Who they? Joe Burr.
What? Because Joe Burr. But don't throw me out right now. I'm in the middle of the pod. Give me like 20 minutes.
It was a pretty fun game to watch. Josh Allen, again, kind of just looked like a mediocre quarterback. Nothing special, nothing great. He played pretty mediocre.
Well, what have I been saying? One
touchdown, one reception. I think you and I have both agreed on it, though. Like when you get the pressure on him, he looks the most mediocre. That's how you throw him off your game.
You get in his face,
and you have a solid secondary like the Bengals have. They're able to lock down Stephon Diggs for the most part, and it really forces Josh Allen to look elsewhere. I mean, when you have Dalton Kincaid having 10 receptions on 11 targets, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I think that's really the biggest difference maker, because Stephon Diggs had that 10 touchdown or the 10 targets, 11
different
targets
game.
Or whatever. It's a little bit of a different game because it's going to have that extra 30, 40, 50 yards maybe, and possibly another touchdown.
Yeah, and that's enough to get the Bills a win over the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Especially keeping a guy like Khalil Shakir, who has been able to be relevant at multiple points this year, and making it so a guy like Gabe Davis just was not there. Gabe Davis only was targeted twice on no receptions.
Yep,
he didn't call back.
Fat zero.
He didn't call back.
A lot of people at the beginning of the season thought Gabe Davis was his year, and
I was excited to see him. Yeah, I think a big part of that is Josh Allen. I don't think he goes through his reads as effectively as people would like to assume he does. A lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, Stephon Diggs doesn't get the credit he deserves, I feel like. Stephon Diggs is probably a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. I think, if Stephon Diggs was playing with Patrick Mahomes, he would be getting praised and breaking records. Justin Jefferson, everybody's so quick to be like, oh, Kirk Cousins is ass. Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson hook up just fine. And it's proven at this point of the season that Kirk Cousins was able to perform without Justin Jefferson. He had just Jordan Addison and, Hawk, and he was being productive still. I don't think Josh Allen is better than Kirk Cousins. He's just not. So, imagine if Stephon Diggs was on a team like a Kirk Cousins team, like a Patrick Mahomes team, like a Jalen Hurts team, like a Tua Tagovailoa team. What happens then? Then?
I think Josh Allen is a good but not great quarterback, and I think people are are still riding the hype and the wave from 2 years ago when they made the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
I think they're still riding that, and I think it's long overdue to re-talk about and rethink where Josh Allen is in the quarterback rankings.
100%.
Yeah, but conversely, I don't think Joe Burrow is getting enough love either.
The Bengals do this every season. I've been saying this all year, even as a Steelers fan. Bengals start off the season slow every year. I've been saying it all season long, haven't I? Bengals start slow every year. They turn on the gas, and now they're winning games, and they're going to be in the playoff hunt, and they're going to be contesting for the first spot in the AFC North. And I didn't think the AFC North was going to be this ugly this year, but I love it.
It definitely makes for fun football to watch.
Yeah, and I called it at the beginning of the week. T. Higgins, especially in matchups with good defenses, you got to start T. Higgins because he's going to get those extra receptions where plays are broken up and Joe Burrow scrambling. I think 4 or 5 times Joe Burrow targeted T. Higgins when he was outside the pocket.
Yep.
So
I think, something like that.
So when that many targets are going to T. Higgins on scrambles, that's because Joe Burrow's looking for him and he knows it's a safe throw. He's going to dink and dunk, and especially in PPR leagues, that's a big difference because T. Higgins was worth 19 points this week. One of those receptions turned into a touchdown. Like, we're talking about wide receiver 1 type numbers.
Yep, almost 30 points.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is just like T. Higgins is just so dominant at those 50-50 balls.
Mm-hmm.
You see T. Higgins down there, just chuck it up, see what happens, because most of the time he's going to come down with that.
And, the Bengals, they say, okay, you want to double Jamar Chase? We got another one on the other side and another one in the slot. So,
yeah, and Tyler Boyd's not going to laugh at it. He's still a solid slot receiver who is reliable for the Bengals and fits that role perfectly. Like, I never thought he was like a number 1 type player, but put him in the slot and just let him go to work because that's 100%. Where he's always played the best at. I think.
I agree. I just was really impressed with the Bengals' performance this week. They were just really solid all around. And the Bills, I just feel like didn't want to win the game as much as the Bengals did. I think this was a will game, if you want to call it that. A game of just pure willpower. And the Bengals proved that they had more of it.
Yeah. And the Bills are entering dangerous territory, being 5-4.
Yeah.
And with 8 games left on the season, it's getting to almost where it's do or die type for them. It's like if they don't start winning some close games, they're not going to make it to the playoffs.
Yeah. It helps them that the Jets and the Dolphins and the Pats lost this week. I mean, the Pats are kind of out of the discussion at this juncture, but the Jets and Dolphins losing this week keeps things looking a little bit more fresh for them. But, the Jets are only half a game behind and the Dolphins are only 1 game ahead.
Right.
So,
but the Bills stuff, and in terms of playoff seeding and stuff like that, the Bills still have to worry about the Texans and the Chargers who are coming on strong.
Yeah, right now. And the whole AFC North.
Right.
And it doesn't help that you're playing the AFC North to get tiebreakers and shit, and you just lost to the Bengals.
So, the Bills don't have an easy path forward. It's going to, like I said, I think this is kind of getting into do or die territory for them.
I agree. We're talking 2 or 3 more losses, and that might be it. That might be all it takes is 2 or 3 more losses. And that's true for any AFC team. 2 or 3 more losses, and that might be what ends your season is 3 more losses from here out. I don't know if an X7 team is going to be able to make it into the playoffs.
It'll be interesting.
And, here's the thing, too. Coming up, they got the Broncos this upcoming week. That should be a win. Should be. I emphasize should be a win. Then they have the Jets.
Big on should.
Yeah. Then they have the Jets, which should be a win. But then they go into the Eagles. They go to Kansas City. They host the Cowboys. They go to LA Chargers. they host the Patriots, and then they got to visit Miami.
So that's potentially 5 of the last 6 games being losses.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very real possibility. I think their best chance is the Chargers, but even then, like 4 losses in your last 6 games is going to be deadly, and it could tank your season. Horribly.
Yeah, and like that last week against the Miami Dolphins, like that might be a win in you're in type situation too. Because there is the chance that they go ahead and take care of business against the Broncos and the Jets. They might lose to the Eagles. They might take care of the Chiefs or beat the Eagles and lose to the Chiefs, or maybe they lose both those games, but they take care of business against the Cowboys, take care of business against the Chargers, take care of business against the Patriots. And the Dolphins just managed to stay 1 game ahead. Well, you go ahead and get that win right there. All of a sudden you're right back into the nick of things, and you have the full tiebreaker over the Dolphins because you beat them earlier in the season.
Right.
So you're 2-0 against the Dolphins. That Dolphins win is going to be the critical win on the season. If they're still contesting up to that point, that the Eagles are tough. The Chiefs are tough. The Cowboys are tough. But, that Dolphins game, that's a playoff game. That's just what that is. It's a playoff game before it starts. Yeah.
They're no joke.
And it's a must-win if you're Buffalo.
And Buffalo is going to need the AFC North to start slipping up.
Yeah.
With the way that whole division is playing right now, like they need them to start slipping up so that they can slip into that, hopefully, a 7 seed.
The best situation for them is, the AFC North still has to play each other a few times. That's what a lot of those AFC teams are banking on is, they're going to tire each other out.
Right.
While we're talking about standings.
Chargers versus the Jets.
Yeah.
Chargers take care of business 27-6. Any surprises? Because I was not surprised by the outcome.
Nope. You, Travis, and I all said Chargers win. We all said 31-21. So I was surprised that the Jets weren't
closer.
Yeah, we all thought the Jets would be a little bit better, but it was the last prediction of the episode. We just had a union of friendship and called it a day.
So, I mean, the Jets gave the rock to Breece Hall for 16 carries, 50 yards. So he didn't do horribly, but he didn't do good. He was just very mediocre. But I think the telling thing is, like, I don't think you can rely on Zach Wilson to throw the ball 50 times and win the game.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Honestly. And the thing was, Zach Wilson wasn't bad.
He had no turnovers.
No mistake.
Well, actually, he had 3 fumbles, but.
Oh, he had 3 fumbles?
Yeah, Garrett Wilson had another fumble.
Yeah. So, fumbles aren't good, but interceptions, he didn't have any, and you just don't let Zach Wilson get hit. Like, that's a much better situation for him, How many times did Zach Wilson get sacked this game? Let's double check.
I will say I have been
sacked 5 times.
I will say I have been more impressed with Zach Wilson this year than last year, and I think he has definitely progressed.
He got sacked 8 times.
I think a lot of that has to do with Aaron Rodgers. And
yeah.
Jesus, 8 times. Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, you can't step back and make it so Zach Wilson has to pass the ball 50 times. And on nearly 8% of those snaps, he's getting sacked. You can't have nearly 10% of your snaps on offense being sacks. You're not going to win a game. You're just not.
Right.
But on the other side of the ball, it wasn't like the Chargers offense was elite. They just took advantage of the field position and scored. They did what they had to do, put the game away.
Yeah, I mean, you have Austin Eckler getting 2 touchdowns. And that's really kind of where it comes down to.
Yep. Keenan Allen had a good game.
Yep, 8 catches,
he was worth about
yards.
15 points. 15 and a half
Justin
points.
Herbert,
solid game.
Justin Herbert was basically 50%. But
Yeah,
136 yards passing.
This Jets defense is good enough to keep them alive through games, and we've seen them do it multiple times throughout the season. But the thing is,
Mhm.
are the Chargers actually a threat for a playoff run?
Not a legitimate threat. I still think they're kind of like a fringe playoff team. Maybe 7th seed getting bounced first round. It's kind of where I
So
see them.
I'm glad we're ending on the Chargers because I want to talk about one topic with you.
All right.
We're talking about wild card positioning. I want to compare two schedules with you. Okay.
Okay.
I want to compare the Chargers schedule with you. I want to compare the Steelers schedule to you because the Steelers are leading right now in wild card bracketing for the AFC. So we could compare any team to the Steelers because they're just number 5. So saying they get in based on where the Steelers rank up on the schedule matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could do this with any team you want as well and have this discussion fully. So remaining games throughout the season, getting it all pulled up right now. So I'll start with the Steelers, which the Steelers for the remainder of the season, this is how their matchups are looking. They're 5-3 at this point, and their upcoming games are going to be versus the Packers. So they're hosting the Packers. Do you think that's a win?
I feel confident saying that. I think they're going to win, but I think it's going to be a close game.
I think it's going to be a close game as well.
I think it's going to be like a close, boring game.
Yep. Then they go to Cleveland.
Wait, Cleveland is playing. That might be. That might be.
I think that's a coin flip game. Yeah. Bengals, which I think is a coin flip game.
Yeah, the Bengals been playing hot.
Then you got Cardinals.
Easy
Patriots.
Win. Easy win, unfortunately.
Colts.
I could see the Colts winning.
At hosting the Bengals.
I said at the beginning of the season, I think the Steelers split them. So I think this is where they get their win against the Bengals.
At Seattle.
I think Seattle is. I'd probably pick Seattle.
And then at Baltimore.
Ooh. Depends on which Baltimore team we get.
Yeah. It seems like Baltimore usually has a hard time against the Steelers, knock on wood.
I could see the Steelers winning, but it's going to come down to that play calling for the Steelers.
Yeah. Okay, so compare that to the Chargers schedule. So upcoming, this is what they're looking at. Lions, Packers. Lions, do you think the Chargers could beat the Lions?
I think they could. I don't think they will.
Yeah, me too. Packers?
I think they'll win.
They should. Ravens?
Loss.
Patriots?
Win.
Broncos?
Probably a win.
Raiders?
But the Broncos have been playing a little bit better. Win against the Raiders.
Bills?
I would like to say win, but I think it's probably going to be a loss.
Broncos?
I'm going to say win again.
Chiefs?
Loss.
So that's how the Chargers are lining up for the rest of the season. Do you have any other teams that you want to compare to? I think the Steelers are a fair comparison because, we kind of get a touch on the Browns and Bengals standings at that juncture of the season too.
Yeah. I think that kind of just sums it up perfectly because the Steelers are a good team to compare it against because that is the most interesting and competitive division right now in all of football, right? Because you got 4 playoff teams right now. as it stands.
Yep.
And by the season ends, you could still have 4 playoff teams.
Yeah.
So it's like they're the division to pay attention to. I've said this before. I would not be surprised if all 4 of them make the playoffs.
Yeah. It'd be crazy. But I think the talent's there.
Mm-hmm.
This
100%.
is one of those divisions. This is one of those divisions where all the teams are gritty, nasty, and they all want to win. They all want one thing. And you don't see it very often in football, but damn when you do. The last time I really think I seen this was back in like 2012, 2013, and it was with the Seahawks. When the Seahawks made the playoffs, they ended up winning on a negative record. And it was like no division wanted to win that fucking division. It's the opposite of that now, though. No team wanted to win that fucking division because they didn't want to be drafted any later. It seemed like I think the Seahawks got in at like 6-10 or something that season. They got to the dance.
Is that when they had Matt Hasselbeck?
Yeah, I think it was like his last season.
Yeah, but now it just seems like every team wants to win with this division,
Yeah.
dude. And it's honestly fun to watch, and I love it because it's good for football.
Yeah, it's really 100%. Good. I'm so excited to see where this ends up going.
I hope all 4 make it because that would be incredible.
It would be. It'd be like record setting. 7-9 is what they went, by the way. 2010 Seahawks, and they won in the wild card against the Saints, and then lost to the Chicago Bears. The Bears.
Yeah, that's when the Bears went to the playoff, the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that year and got slapped.
Yeah, they had Matt Hasselbeck. He went 6-8 in the regular season, passed for 3,001 yards, 12 touchdowns, 17 picks. Don't forget that one.
God
yeah,
damn.
so
that's so sad.
Abysmal.
Oh my God.
They had Marshawn Lynch and Justin Forsett, which combined they rushed for 1,100 yards exactly for 8 touchdowns.
Damn.
Elite performance.
Disgusting performance. All right, Shane,
Golden Tate was on that team.
Out.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Smash like on whatever. We're live on Facebook. We got a Facebook group. We got a YouTube channel. We got a Twitter. We got an Instagram. Check out Travis's headhunting page. He's doing a lot of Rocket League content over there. Always looking for new people over there. Check me out on Twitch and YouTube. I make content videos on YouTube, do live streams on Twitch. And did I forget anything, Austin?
No, man.
All right. Well, with that being said, I hope you all have a great night. And tomorrow we will be back here around the same time, probably.
Oh, yeah. Good night.
Good night.